Good evening, Entropians. Julian McBain here, and tonight we are continuing on the Kerbs Bronze Iron quest, but we're over in Fort Lahar, which is here, and thankfully for once it's not overrun with robots. Well, these are Combibos. I don't think I've got the Combibo quest. The Combibo quest, do I? Oh, I do have the Combibo quest. So actually, there's a lot of things here that I could be, anything I shoot's actually going to help me. Oh, well, that's useful. So we're just going to like track that and track that. And we can turn off the Pheefoids for now. Oh, I didn't want to turn that off. Turn off the Pheefoids because we're not at the Pheefoids. No. There we go. I think because it's Combibos, Cornundos, and Kerberos that are here, if I remember correctly. We'll turn off the Iron Argonaut because I'm not doing the Argonaut quest right at the moment. So, as you all know, I'm kind of a lay student of psychology and philosophy, and I watch a lot of online lectures, primarily Jordan Peterson, but I am looking into others that provide free content. One of the reasons I like Peterson so much is that he offers all of his stuff for free on YouTube. And so that's where, you know, sometimes when you have a source, you utilize the source. And currently he's recently released a bunch of debates he had with Sam Harris, who is a philosopher. But as I was watching, as I'm watching these debates, I'm thinking about philosophy and psychology and how we formed in our minds the ethos of how we live. It came to mind that, you know, even I, in my strange way, have, you know, my own philosophy. Well, not necessarily strange way, but I have my own philosophy. I have my own beliefs. But one of the things that I always have on my bed, on my headboard or my bedstand, depending on the bed I have. Currently, it's a headboard. Is a copy of The Art of War. And I just kind of wanted to go into that a little bit tonight because realistically, The Art of War might be the most important or one of the most important philosophical and treaties of not only warfare but just leadership in general. And as someone who is of course a student of the sword and a student of the human condition now, it occurred to me that it's probably been 5 years since I've given it a good read, and I need to do so again. But I think the reason The Art of War resonates with so many people, and The Art of War of course was written by Sun Tzu, and I looked up the pronunciation because, of course, most people in English-speaking countries call him Sun Tzu. But apparently it's pronounced Z, and I make an effort to pronounce names correctly, especially when they're not written on our alphabet, and we do our best to transliterate them. And so it got me to thinking that, you know, The Art of War. The Art of War is pretty much universal because just because it's called The Art of War doesn't mean that war has to be hovering grass. Maybe it's, oh, you know what, I bet it's the light sources because of the way things are. That's fine. I ran into a glitch there. The Art of War isn't necessarily just a treatise on war. It's a treatise on how to lead people. It's how to handle life. And I have a copy. It's about 3 inches by 4 inches in size. It's the Shambhala edition, translated by Dr. Thomas Cleary. And in the first chapter, Strategic Assessments, Sun Tzu says, therefore measure in terms of 5 things. Use these assessments to make comparisons and thus find what the conditions are. The 5 things are the way, the weather, the terrain, the leadership, and the discipline. And if you think about it, this is really easily passed into other parts of our life, right? And just the first, the way, which of course is much more complex than I'm about to give it, but it's basically, with the way, you make the people that follow you have the same aim as you as the leader, or the leaders and the followers have to have the same goal in mind. And honestly, I think in modern business, that's probably the hardest thing that we have to contend with. Because, especially for those of us that are in the middle class, upper, lower, doesn't matter. Or for those of us who are members of the working poor. And I hate that term, really, but there's no better term for it in modern English, because, of course, we don't have... I don't like to distill everything into classes. I think it's very inappropriate in the modern landscape. But for lack of a better term, the lower middle class and the working poor, because in often cases, the thing that they're working toward is making sure that their paycheck is where they expect it to be. They really don't necessarily care about the objectives of the company that they work for, or the manager that they work for. A lot of them aren't invested in it. I think this can be resolved. I know a lot of public companies have employee stock purchase programs and things like that, and 401ks, of course, but I think with better leadership training for managers, that could easily be resolved. And this might end up being one of those videos I make that get like a shit ton of dislikes, and if that's the case, I'm sorry that I wasn't entertaining for you, but really, the way. What is the way? And I'm not talking about in the, I think it was the Nigerian Knuckles joke. It was just terrible. But, can we get everyone on the same page? It doesn't matter what we're doing. It doesn't matter whether it's in business or in your family, or in politics or philosophy, the church, whatever. It doesn't matter. Can we get everyone on the same page? And once everyone's on the same page, can we all agree on a course of action? Can we produce a consensus? And this hurt Kerb is like following me around. And I know for a fact if I shoot him, I'm not going to get the loot. Look at this. He's like just wandering in my direction. Come on, we're going to change directions here. If he follows me again, I'm just going to say screw it and put him out of his misery, but... But just in that one sentence, it kind of rekindled the thought processes in me. Yeah, he's still coming toward me. Roundabout route, but he's doing it. And the thought is, how can we inspire people to move in the same direction and have that direction be beneficial? And how can we overcome our own overcome our own desire for success in a way that... No, I wouldn't even say that, because I think that desire for success is what really drives people, and I don't like the idea of having to abandon it. So maybe... How can we overcome the negative connotation that's brought about? I had a thought for this and I lost it. I lost it. I'm sorry, guys. But I mean, realistically, is how do we lead people so we're all on the same page? How can we drive consensus so we can all achieve a common goal? And I mean, obviously, the first thing we need to do is we need to come up with a group of common goals that we actually all want to subscribe to. And getting a group of people on the same page is something akin to getting a crocodile to sit still while you pull its teeth. And the larger the group, the more likely that consensus is not going to be gained. And that's just a fact of life, because as humans, we all have different philosophies and different ideas of how we do things. And I'm trying to continue this conversation without delving into too deep into the things that I don't like discussing in a public manner, except just in a public manner, which of course are politics and religion, because I think everyone's entitled to their beliefs, especially religious beliefs, as long as it doesn't bring harm to others. And so, and that's about as far as I'm going to go on that. And the only time you'll ever really hear anything political on here is when it directly affects games or the way we present them, like YouTube and Twitch and things like that. But I'm noticing that the more time that passes, the less likely people are willing to agree with each other. And I think that if we can remember the way, can we remember the way? And if we can remember the way, I think we'll find that for all the differences, I mean, just in America alone, we have something like 380 million people living here, which means we're literally going in 380 different directions. But a lot of those directions are aligned in the same general orientation, right? So like there are 360 degrees on a compass, but of those, 90 degrees of them can be considered generally north. And if we could get more people to head, metaphorically speaking, generally north, then maybe we could come up with a way to reduce the amount of hardship that we all have to put up with. And this really leads back to my affirmation probably a month and a half ago now, when after taking that class with Scott Noyes, or by Scott Noyes I should say, that life is a series of traumas that we have to put up with and learn from and really work ourselves through. Because I think that's how we apply the way. Each of those traumas puts us in a situation with people that maybe don't even see anywhere close to eye with us. The biggest trauma of all for the majority of us, of course, being, maybe it's not the majority anymore, but for a significant number of us, a statistically significant number of us, being 9/11, when we all witnessed 3,300 people die on live television. And I'm not, for those who weren't there or weren't old enough to really witness it, I'm not talking about this metaphorically. We not only watched it live on television, but we saw it repeated over and over again for a week at minimum. I can remember a week very vividly. I'm sure it was longer than that. And that was probably the most traumatic worldwide event that we've experienced since, frankly, probably since World War II. And so I think that if we can all get back to the way and get all moving in the same general direction again. And maybe part of the problem is we can't agree upon the direction to go. Or maybe we just haven't figured ourselves out yet as a both a nation in the if you're in the United States or whatever country you're in, or as a people, or even globally. I can't say I'm necessarily a globalist, but just for the sake of this conversation, let's say globally. How can we best serve ourselves and the people that we care about without negatively impacting other people? Let's try it that way. And I think that's something that we really need to think about. And I think one of the ways we can do that is to really focus on making ourselves the best person we can be. Can we be the best person we can be? And I know there's been a bit of controversy over that whole idea in the States lately because of a couple of commercials. I'm not going to get into it. I don't really give a shit about it. Frankly, I think it's just a bunch of bullshit grandstanding by a whole bunch of people, but I'm not going to get into it. So yeah, that's pretty much my take on that whole situation. There was another quote in this book that I read that really kind of struck a chord with me, and I'm going to try to quickly find it while I'm hunting, which is probably a dumb idea, especially since I am not wearing armor. But I'm going to make an effort. Formation, doing battle. Whoops. Oh, that's right, I activated tab targeting. Ha! Here it is. Leadership is a matter of intelligence, trustworthiness, humaneness, courage, and sternness. I'm going to repeat that. Leadership is a matter of intelligence, trustworthiness, humaneness, courage, and sternness. And the two things I think I'm going to really pick apart in that one are trustworthiness and courage. Because the two really kind of go hand in hand. Quickly check my time here. Okay, we're good for time. I always worry. I try to keep these videos to be about a half hour, and I'm always worried I'm going to end up going like ridiculously over. Did I loot this body? Yeah, I did. So let's talk about trustworthiness, and this is something I struggled with for a long time. In fact, I dare say I was a really shitty teenager in 20-something because I didn't know how to tell the truth well. And I know that seems like a strange thing to admit, especially in a video like this, but it's true. And maybe it's just a symptom of the time period that I grew up in, but it took me a long time to figure out that no matter what the consequences of something, it's always best to tell the truth. And I mean, there are dark truths and there are white lies, and I don't like that terminology, but we'll accept it for now. And there might be times when you don't have a choice but to tell an untruth. And I know in certain cultures, saving face is very important, so of course we have to temper this with a certain amount of cultural understanding. For instance, in Eastern culture, saving face is very, very important. And so sometimes telling the white lie in order to allow someone to save face, as opposed to posing the blunt and completely undiluted truth for the sake of the truth, may not be the best option all the time. But other things being equal, I would always err on the side of being truthful as to not be. And where I'm going with that, and I know that's another one of Peterson's 12 rules: always tell the truth, or at least don't lie. But realistically speaking, people really build the entire structure of their lives based on trust. The entire architecture of our very society is based on trust values and trust, the pillars of trust. we trust that when we tell our parents something, they are going to be generally supportive. Or they're at least going to make sure that we're not more hurt by it than we already are. They may not be able to protect us from it, but they're not going to compound it. As a general rule. Of course, there are bad parents out there, or maybe it's one of those ripping the Band-Aid off issues. And it might hurt at first if that's the case, but in the end, sometimes ripping the Band-Aid off is the better solution as to letting the splinter stay in, because you got to rip the Band-Aid off in order to take the splinter out. The trust you put into a partner, knowing that they'll remain faithful to you. And so, and when those trust structures are removed, then it often shakes the very foundation of our very belief systems. And that can be dangerous. In a number of ways. Not the least of which is the fact that, we build our whole lives based on trust in individuals, and if the trust is unfounded, then we don't know where we stand in the world, and we find out that the entire life that we've built around ourselves is predicated on a lie, because one key person was actually not to be trusted, and we trusted them maybe implicitly. And now I'm finding a lot of allegory, but a lot of parallels between Peterson's book and Sun Tzu's. Because the other one I wanted to talk about was courage. And realistically, that goes to another one of Peterson's rules: stand up straight with your shoulders back. Have the courage to face life. But I think it really comes down more to in the face of... My brain is failing me. Holy shit. In the face of adversity, always have courage. Always be willing to stand up for what is right, or what you believe to be true. And always have the courage to admit when you're wrong. And that doesn't come necessarily down to actively lying, but maybe you believe an untruth and you discover that you're wrong, and never be afraid to admit that you've changed your mind due to different facts. I think is the best way I can put that, and that I think is also a key component of trustworthiness. When you have the courage to admit that you're wrong when you're wrong, and you don't force or you don't discount facts just because they don't fit into your personal worldview. The narrow box that you may have carved to be your pillar of the world. Maybe you find out that there's a nick that you did not realize was there, or maybe you find out that the column that you've used to support this roof isn't the type of column that you expected it to be. And sometimes it means that maybe the roof isn't supported at all and it falls, and you realize that the whole structure itself was on weak foundation. Have the courage to admit it. Have the courage to go forth and change the way you think. Because sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're right. But sometimes you're wrong. And in the face of new facts, never be afraid to change the way you think. Because it's not hypocrisy to change the way you think in light of new facts. It's only hypocrisy to change the way you think in order to, for the sake of expedience, for lack of a better term. It's more convenient to my goals for me to think this way, or to say I think this way about topic A, but if it becomes better for me to think of this other direction, this other way for topic A, then I'm going to say that I think that other direction, because it allows me to achieve my goal more efficiently, and that's a dangerous path to walk down. tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with someone. We're going to be discussing ACEs, adverse childhood experiences and trauma and things like that, a psychologist. And I don't go to a psychologist. We're going to be discussing things academically, despite the fact that I'm only an AS, and actually it's for family. But the Duchess of Duke, did that actually just say the Duchess of Duke? Yeah, Duchess of Duke. Okay, I wasn't seeing things. We're cool. Sorry about that. But anyway, so I'm going to be meeting with the psychologist tomorrow, and I have the feeling I'm going to have a lot to talk about, because I'm going to be taking notes. And when it comes to things like this, I tend to be a rather prolific note taker. And even if I don't necessarily take notes during the session, as it processes, I'll have a piece of paper or a notepad next to me and I'll write things down. And in fact, that's how a lot of these videos are produced, is I always keep a notepad or a piece of paper or something of that nature next to me when I'm at work. And when something comes to my mind, I'll write it down. And like this video, I didn't necessarily produce this video like I should have. I really should have, but I was able to pull it off without any issue. And the reason why is because I knew generally what I wanted to talk about. And the one passage notwithstanding where I couldn't find the bloody passage in The Art of War, I had an idea of what I was aiming for. But I keep a notepad next to me and I write down things that I need to go through. Because this is how I process things in my mind. And never think that this is supposed to be a lecture or anything like that. I'm not a professor. I'm not even close to one. I've given a couple of guest lectures on finance because, you know, I'm good at that stuff, or at least I think I'm good at that stuff. Obviously the person who invited me to guest lecture did. Previous life. But anyway, you know, I'm not by a long shot. I'm not. I don't even have a bachelor's degree, right? So obviously, I'm not a high academic. But this is how I work things out, and I really hope that you enjoy the journey, because that's how I really see this. This is a journey. We're trying to sort out the human condition for ourselves in a very layman-like way. Tell me what you think. Drop a comment. Maybe we can start a conversation. That's always what I'm looking for, is can we start a conversation? Because that's really what this is all about. Where the hell am I? Did I get that far from the fort? Oh, that's Chugs. No, so I should be right on top. Okay, there it is. Good gravy. Oh, ha! Turn around, Julian. It's right behind you. We'll fight our way back to the fort. Hopefully I didn't aggro anything else. So I hope you're enjoying the content I'm putting out. I really do appreciate all the support everyone's given me. You know, I have seen that the watch time minutes have gone down somewhat, although I don't know if it's because of the content I'm producing here or if it's because of just the time of year. So my hope is that it's not the content I'm producing, it's just the time of year, but I'll have to discern what's causing that. Because, well, quite frankly, if I'm not being entertaining, obviously I'm screwing something up. I'm just going to get back to the fort and then I'll do the outro. Yesterday, you're seeing this on Wednesday, I'm producing this on Tuesday. So today for me, tomorrow, yesterday for you, the first episode of Prey came out. And I'm still currently playing that. In fact, tomorrow, I took tomorrow off and I'm planning on running through as much of that as I can. Because that's a very bingeable game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I played that before I found out the game audio wasn't coming through because I screwed up my sound settings because I didn't know what I was doing with my Yeti. I got through like 5 hours of it, and so I'm really looking forward to going back in and binging through and finishing the. I don't think I'm going to finish it tomorrow, but I think I'm going to go to climb through a large part of the game. So, all right, guys, this is the end for the night. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. Once again, if you have any opinions about what I'm talking about, or even if you want to say, "Hey, Julian, cut the shit and stop talking about this stuff," put that down there too. Little things like this to me, and I mean, I can produce a standard Entropia Universe video, but realistically, I really enjoy just being able to kind of talk about the human condition while we play, and kind of a chill environment. And so hopefully that's good for you as well. That's all I got, guys. Thanks a lot again, and have a wonderful night.